Hello, I'm Austin Wilson, Chief Investment Officer at Hixon Zuercher Capital Management.
And I'm Josh Robb, Director of Wealth Management at Hixon Zuercher Capital Management. And today we're going to look backwards at the January markets and also talk about our outlook for February.
That's right. So, the markets.
Yes.
Starting with the markets for the month of January, S&P 500 up a little bit, up 1.23%. Dow Jones Industrial Average up 1.11%. The NASDAQ up 0.99%. So a little less than 1% there. Mid-cap stocks outperformed large cap stocks up 2.67%, but where the real gains in the U.S., more to come on that, was small cap stocks up 4.28% in the month of January. So pretty good.
Just for 1 month.
Just for 1 month. Developed international stocks up 3.62%, and emerging market stocks led the way, up 8.78%.
Wow, that's good for a month.
That's a pretty good month. That's a good year, really. Yes. That's a really good month. The bond market eked out a small gain as well, up 0.31% for the month. One of the biggest news, however, during the month of January was at the very end of the month, and it was kind of, the markets had been anticipating this, but had been alluding, the president had been alluding to it for some time, was he announced his Fed chair pick that he'll be nominating to be Fed chair if he gets confirmed by the Senate here later this year, and that is Kevin Warsh.
Okay.
Kevin Warsh has a long history of involvement in the government. He was a special assignment guy with President Bush, George W. Bush, in the early 2000s for at least one of his terms. He worked in private practice at a large family office. Mm-hmm. He's very trusted by Wall Street. So we'll have to see about how he puts his take on what we're seeing in terms of the macroeconomic landscape and the Fed and what they're doing. The markets generally actually sold off a little bit when that news hit because he has a history of being a bit more hawkish, which would be more aggressive from a monetary policy standpoint, trying to have higher rates and lower inflation. However, the president probably wouldn't have nominated him if they hadn't had some discussions of him probably wanting lower rates.
President Trump wants more dovish, lower rates for stimulating the economy. Okay.
Yep. So that's what happened. That's one of the biggest moves in the month of January.
Okay. I get to talk about the fun news.
The fun news.
Depending on where you live in the United States, you probably experienced a little bit of a cold front the last handful of weeks. A little bit.
It was a lot.
And that was true for people in Florida who don't normally have cold weather, or at least this cold of weather. And so in South Florida, one of the effects of cold weather down there is sometimes cold-blooded animals struggle.
They don't do so well.
Their energy level, their metabolism is related to their body temperature, cold-blooded.
Right.
And so when it's nice and warm, they have the energy, which is why you see, turtles and alligators and a lot of them out sunning themselves. They're building up that energy using the heat. When it's cold, slows everything down. Metabolism slows down everything. So iguanas, they get so cold, they lose their ability to hold on to the tree branches that they're hanging onto and fall to the ground.
Yeah.
So you have frozen iguanas dropping from trees. And just, iguanas aren't tiny little things.
Right.
All right. So if one hits you on the head while you're walking,
you're gonna know.
You notice it. So that was something that's happened. It's happened in the past before, but it was cold enough and cold long enough that we were starting to see that actually happen.
Absolutely.
And there's videos out there if you want to see frozen iguanas falling from trees.
Well, and I think there's actually reports of I guess it'd be the animal control people. That's who you'd call.
Yep.
They would go and and most of these are going to be fine.
Yeah, I mean, as long as
most of them, unless they broke
how
their head.
high they were. Yeah.
Right. But there were stories of hundreds of pounds of iguanas getting scooped up and into piles.
Yeah, and just waiting for them to defrawl and crawl.
We don't have that in Ohio. We haven't had squirrels because they're more
they do fine. Yeah, we don't have a lot of cold
but we did have the cold front, and it's snowing actually as we're recording this a little bit.
Yep.
It's not going to thaw anytime soon.
No.
We're in the deep freeze.
Yes. And there was some more cold weather coming down to Florida. So that,
oh, joy.
It's
actually funny.
They probably made it back up just to freeze and fall again.
There are a lot of people who moved south for better weather, right? But that really bit them in the butt recently because you got the same weather you got up here pretty much down there. You might have got some big snow. You might have got some ice. You see Nashville obviously had terrible ice. And Florida getting, there's the northern end of Florida got snow.
Yep.
All this other stuff. So really crazy weather out there. Stay warm, stay safe, stay on your feet. Don't fall down.
If you're iguana.
Don't. If you're an iguana. All right, back to more timely financial news.
Yes.
Inflation. So inflation came in for December, which came out in January. again, around 2.7%, actually a little under 2.7%. This follows the reading from November, which came out in December at 2.7% as well. However, that reading was a little choppy. People didn't really know what to think of it because it was impacted by government shutdown, lack of data for a couple data points, and carry forward.
Yep.
The December reading was a lot more clean. Maybe not perfectly, but a lot more clean. So that gave investors a little bit more reassurance that the data was real. Inflation is actually relatively okay, right? Inflation at 2.7% is lower than we had coming out of the global financial crisis for a long time.
Yep.
But it's much lower than it was, or it's higher than it was coming out of the GFC.
Right.
But it's much lower than it was a couple years ago when we peaked out over 9%.
And that 2.7 number for December is the annualized. So that's really saying for 2025.
For a year, yeah.
That was the inflation for 2025. That December number for the full year, 2.7.
Well, it's for the month of December.
But annualized.
Year over year.
Yes.
Yeah. Yep. So 2.7%, under 3.
Yep.
Generally pretty good.
Yep.
The Fed seeing inflation come down.
Yep.
Labor market doing okay. It's definitely not getting off the charts, for a bunch of layoffs. Unemployment still under 4.5%. So they're probably going to remain pretty controlled in terms of what they're going to be doing the rest of the year. But another good report we'll be watching here in February for January's read to see if that trend continues. And obviously that's going to be something we're going to watch further into the year as the Fed changes a little bit as well. But not a bad read for inflation. Another thing that happened in the month of January was Davos.
Yeah.
Davos, Switzerland.
Yeah. Did you get passport updated?
I missed the cutoff.
You need to go.
I didn't get an invite. So the company plane's in the shop.
Yeah, that's right. Need to repair it.
So we'll have to get that fixed for next year. But yes, the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland. So another cold place.
Yes.
They meet every year, this time of year, world economic leaders, because it can be presidents and central bank people and a bunch of CEOs from, Fortune 500 companies meet and talk about the global economy, the risks they're seeing, the opportunities. Some political leaders take it as an opportunity to kind of talk about their area that they're in charge of and all this other stuff. And we certainly saw that this year.
Probably talking about AI.
A lot of talk about AI, but it was certainly something to watch. If you get a chance to watch some of the interviews from some of the leaders or some of the political leaders or the business leaders, it was worth a watch. But Josh and I might have to wait till next year to get there.
We'll get there eventually.
That's right.
All right. So if you have any questions or concerns or thoughts, you can give us a call at 419-425-2400, or you can email us at hello@hzcapital.com. As a reminder, nothing we say is a recommendation. Please talk to your financial advisor before making decisions, but we're always happy to talk or answer your questions.
And until next month, keep your iguanas warm.
That's right.
And we'll talk soon.
All right. Bye.
Bye.